Good evening. Welcome to Monday's evening class on the 7 factors of awakening. And tonight I'm starting on a new module called Investigation of Reality. So just to give some context to this module, this topic, in this series I'm going through 7 conditions called the 7 factors of awakening. Awakening or enlightenment is the Buddhist term for the radical transformation of consciousness. That's what happened to the Buddha. The Buddha awakened under the Bodhi tree to the reality of his situations, and through his enlightenment experience, he is able to free himself from suffering and the causes, the inner causes of suffering within himself, and in so doing achieve a state of liberation from suffering. Or we can also call it enlightenment, or another translation term, probably a more accurate term, is awakening. Awaken in the sense of awaken from the sleep of ignorance, the sleep of delusion that previously we are under the influence of, that distort our perception, distort our responses, our reactions, and kept us in a state of suffering, so to speak. Yeah. So awakening implies a transition, a shift from a state of sleep, so this, in a normal context, a state of sleep to a state of wakefulness. So there's a shift. And likewise, spiritual awakening involves a shift. You can think of it as a shift of a profound shift in perspective. Previously, when we are so-called under the influence of the sleep of ignorance, our perspective, our perceptions, as well as our thinking, feeling, our reactions and behavior are under the influence of ignorance. I like to think of it as ignorance is constructing a tunnel. The tunnel constrains our perspective, our perceptions, our experience, and also in so doing dictate our reactions. So we fall back on very fixated, habituated reactions. So, things that we build up, conditioning that we carry with us from the past. And what is lacking is, of course, the perspective, the perception is too limited, too constrained. We are seeing things quite often in a distorted way. And also the way we respond to the situation also lacks creativity. We find ourselves falling back or being trapped in a very kind of a lot of habituated reactions. So all of this act together to compound and enhance, increase our suffering, our sense of suffering, or anguish, so to speak. So we are in a way trapped in this kind of tunnel vision. So awakening is to take another look and suddenly realize that, the tunnel is not as solid as we imagine it to be. There's lots of gaps in the brickwork. In fact, there's huge big gaps that you can just step out and you find yourself in a completely different space with a different perspective. You see things differently, or things appear to you differently. There's a much more spacious here, and you can have a better view, so to speak. Yeah, a more accurate view, actually. And that view, that perspective or perception influence how you think and feel. Now you think and feel differently about the situation, about the people, and of course, automatically, the response that comes forth from you to the situations, to the different people, will also be different. In fact, the response becomes very much adapted and very geared, appropriate to the situation. And instead of being sort of somehow fixated or limited due to past conditioning, we are set free from that. We are able to creatively meet the requirement of each of these situations as things change, and be able to respond appropriately in a very helpful, skillful way. So this is one way of understanding awakening. So shifting from tunnel vision into a much more spacious, open, creative vision. So there's this shift. And so the 7 factors of awakening are 7 conditions that we can assemble and cultivate in our own experience within ourselves that facilitate profound shift towards awakening. So I have covered in the previous module the factor of mindfulness. And so I thought to start this module with just a brief review of mindfulness, and we do some of the main ideas I covered, and we're going to do a meditation together. This, I think, will really help to create, sort of establish a certain context. And from that, you can look at this next factor that I'm talking about, investigation of reality. So mindfulness, I would like to define it in a very simple way, not really following any of the popular definition, but just my own very simple-minded way of understanding this factor of awakening, these conditions. I think of it as mindfulness is very closely related to attention, also related to a state of concentration. But it's good to make a differentiate between these three terms, or think of them as referring to three different kind of function or state of mind, so to speak. Mindfulness, I like to just sort of, in a very simple way, think of it as the function or that ability that we all already have, naturally have, that allows something to come fully to mind. So mindful, right? Something to come fully to mind. So let's say if I'm take a very mundane example. I went to the shop and I was trying to remember my grocery list. In this case, where I didn't write it down, I'm trying to let all the different items that I'm supposed to buy to come fully to mind, so that I can attend to them and I can make sure that I get all of them. Especially if someone has said to you that you must remember to buy milk, so you definitely would like at that occasion in the shop to allow the item milk to come fully to mind. Oh, that's right, I need to get milk. Yeah, it's that simple. It's not something exotic or weird. Yeah. So how mindfulness is related to attention is, of course, to be mindful means we must attend. But attention, as the word, can be very short in duration, can be very fleeting, and sometimes we may not pay much attention to things. Like, for example, someone was maybe talking to me, but I am only kind of barely attending to what the person has to say. I'm too preoccupied with something else, so to speak. So in that situation, I will not describe it as allowing what the person has to say to come fully to mind. I'm not being mindful of what that person is saying. Right? So there is that distinction. Even though I know he or she is saying something, but I'm not giving them my full attention. So when I'm give my full attention to someone or something, will allow that event or sound, or conversations or whatever it is to come fully to mind, then I'm being mindful of it, so to speak. The difference also between mindfulness and concentration is, of course, a simple way to think of it in terms of duration. Concentration, especially used in a spiritual context, tends to imply the ability for an extended duration for the mind to be with a particular object or topic, without distraction for an extended period of time. Now, to be mindful is to be able to allow something to come fully to mind, for a certain duration. So maybe in terms of duration, when I'm concentrated, I'm definitely mindful of it, of whatever it is that I'm concentrating on. That's sort of a given. Yeah, it's hard to imagine how can I be concentrating on something and yet be not mindful of it as well. Yeah. So to concentrate on something necessarily imply I'm mindful of it. But the opposite is not necessarily true. I can be mindful of something, but I don't necessarily be concentrating on it, in the sense that I do not necessarily concentrate on it for a long duration. Yeah. Also, maybe the thing that I'm mindful of is very fleeting. They come and go very quickly. Suddenly I hear the bird song, so I turn my attention, allow that to come fully to mind. So I'm mindful of the bird song, but it doesn't last very long, and then it's gone. Right? So there is no opportunity in that situation to concentrate for extended duration on the sound. Okay. All right. With mindfulness, in terms of cultivation of mindfulness and enhancing our natural ability to be mindful, to be attentive, we follow a certain kind of sequence of cultivation. And I thought to sort of recap on that, review that a bit, and then we do a meditation on it so that we all have kind of start from more or less the same place and have a certain context, similar context, then we can explore the next factor of investigation of Dharma. So in the cultivation of mindfulness, usually we start off by being mindful of the more obvious things. So quite often mindfulness is start off with mindfulness of the body, uh, in this case, bodily sensations. Just not much effort, in fact, very little effort involved, simply allowing the sensation, the tactile sensation of the different parts of the body to come fully to mind, to come fully into our awareness, or so that we are attentive and we notice, how my body is feeling at this moment at the different parts of the body. So mindfulness of body, and then naturally to mindfulness of feeling. As we attend to the body, bodily sensations, as we heal the connection between body and mind, in this very simple way, because as that connection is healed, the body also starts to adjust itself. The body sort of wake up to the fact that, oh, maybe I don't need to be so tight, so tense. Maybe I'm not in a dangerous situation now. I'm just one person sitting in this empty hall. Why do I need to be so stressed? And so the body may respond to this renewed connection by starting to loosen up, start to release some of those contraction and tightness, and as those tensions are released, naturally there is kind of pleasant feeling of relaxation, of softening, a feeling of greater ease and comfort naturally arise as a result of mindfulness of body. And when those feelings arise, however feeble, faint, or fleeting they may be, then we practice being mindfully aware of those pleasant feelings. Or we allow those pleasant sensations, even though they may be fairly weak and faint and they're fairly transient, they fade quite quickly. We allow them to come fully to mind, fully to awareness, so that we can appreciate those pleasant sensations while they are here. So that is the second mindfulness of feeling. In this case, mindfulness of pleasant feelings that come out of our practice of mindfulness. Now, why do we do that? Because, of course, that naturally leads to a different kind of effect. Mindfulness of pleasant feelings, especially this type of pleasant feelings, has a very soothing effect on our mind. Just as we help to soothe the body, help the body to release tension, by being mindful of pleasant feelings, it has a kind of soothing effect on the mind itself. It reassured our mind everything is all right here in this moment. And what happens is we will notice to the mind, which most of the time in our modern living, our mind can be a bit agitated, a bit sort of excited, restless. It's always doing something, going here and there, commenting, thinking, ruminating, with lots of thoughts. And then the mind starts to respond, because of the contact with pleasant feeling. The mind say, oh, maybe I don't have to work so hard. Don't have to think so hard. Don't have to constantly anticipate, plan, and do this, do that, commenting on this, having opinions, judgments, evaluating. The mind can start to slow down a bit. You find that as that happens, that translates experientially as a calming effect on the mind. Not completely, but thoughts are less compulsive and less frequent. They start to have some short gaps in between where it seems to be a lot more quieter inside. There's a growing sense of silence, inner silence. And also, even when thoughts arise, they're less insistent, less kind of jarring, so to speak. So the mind is coming down. Mental reactivities are decreasing. And of course, this leads to the third area of mindfulness. We also become more aware of the mind itself. We are allowing the mind and its different states to come fully into awareness. So there is this progression. Mindfulness of body, lead to mindfulness of pleasant feelings in the body, into mindfulness of the mind and the states of the mind. Okay, so this is a good way to cultivate mindfulness. Excuse me, sorry. There's a fourth area which we'll touch on later. But I think there's a good place to do a meditation. And whether you are new or you have attended my previous module, this is a good place for us to have a personal experience of mindfulness and to see whether what I present just now, whether it is true or not in your own experience as we invoke this natural ability of mindfulness that we all have. And first of all, invite mindfulness to manifest so that we are more aware of bodily sensations, which I'll guide you through, starting from the crown, part by part, slowly at our own pace, with very little effort, just a light touch, inviting different tactile sensations to come into awareness, to come fully to mind, so that we can attend to it, we are aware of it. And as we proceed, usually not immediately, but after a certain delay, our body may or may not respond to what we are doing with mindfulness. The body starts to relax a little bit, start to unwind a bit. Some pleasant sensations, very faint, nothing spectacular, but faint sense of softening, of ease and comfort, of relaxation come to mind. Then we invite those feelings in, allow them also to come fully to mind. So we practice mindfulness of pleasant feelings. And as we go through from crown to feet, at the end, after we've done that, for the last few minutes, I invite you to rest the body here in the posture. Rest your attention, the mind, also here with the body. Continue to be aware. Continue to invite in, to come fully into mind, bodily sensations, pleasant feelings. Of course, we can also acknowledge any unpleasant sensations, and these feelings of discomfort that might be here with us as well. Yeah. And lastly, as we invite in the bodily sensations, the feelings, naturally, without any effort on our part, we also become more aware of the mind, the state of the mind. Whether the mind is feeling a bit sleepy, a bit dark and dull and slow, moving towards under the influence of drowsiness, or the mind is still fairly active, still a bit agitated, still a lot of thoughts here and there, we become more aware of it, more mindful of it. Or maybe we find ourselves find that the mind is behaving a bit different. There seems to be a lot less thoughts, a lot more space, a lot more gaps. There is a growing sense of calmness or stillness. And even when there are thoughts, they are less insistent, they are less disturbing. So the mind might be coming down. We don't know, so we can discover for ourselves. Yeah. So let's do a meditation on mindfulness. And so I invite you to find a suitable posture for your body, which is actually a very important first step. Choose a posture that you feel will allow the body to be comfortable in, to feel supported, and be able to keep the whole body in a stable posture. So you can choose to sit on a chair, sit on the floor in a cross-leg position on a cushion, if you are used to that. You can also, in my class, feel free to lie down, especially in the privacy or wherever you are. Feel free to lie down on your back in what we call a supine position. You can lie on the floor. In this case, good to be lying on a yoga mat or carpet, or you can lie on a firm bed or lounge, long enough to accommodate your body. So take a few moments, allow the body to settle into your meditation posture. In that posture, see if we can allow our hands and arms to rest on a firm, solid surface to support the weight of the arms, and so that we do not need to tense up our shoulder muscles to hold them up, to hold up the arms during the meditation. Make sure that the back and spine feels comfortable in the posture. Allow the back or the spine to be upright in a natural way if we are sitting. Natural way, by that I mean we don't have to deliberately tense up the back muscles, don't have to contract the back muscles strongly in order to straighten the back. But instead, by moving our upper body left and right, front and back, around, try to just ease our body into the sitting posture. Find a position that feels reasonably comfortable, natural, and at ease. Lying down, make sure that the back or spine is straight, not crooked. As for the eyes, feel free to close them completely if you find that helpful. Although you're also most welcome to leave your eyes open or half open, and you're free to experiment with it. Let's give our body a few moments to adjust to the meditation posture. We take care to reassure the body that in this posture, the whole body is resting on the support or surface that feels very solid, firm, and stable. And those same qualities can also be found in the posture itself. And somehow, if our body is reassured in this way, that it is well balanced and safe in this posture, the body can begin a natural process of unwinding, of loosening up. Given time, the body can release or let go of unnecessary tensions and contractions in the different parts of the body. And you can really come back here and now to settle down comfortably in the meditation posture. As a way to help our body and mind to transition, to leave aside whatever it is that might be preoccupying them, and for body and mind to come fully back here and now to be in meditation. We're going to make use of mindfulness of the body to help us make that transition, that shift. Mindfulness of body, in a simple way, means allowing bodily sensations to come fully to mind, to awareness, starting at the crown. At the topmost part of our body, see if we can allow sensations here at the crown to come fully to mind, to come fully into awareness. Without much effort, just a light touch, just notice what's here. A slight tingling sensation at the crown, a slight feeling of pressure, a bit of warmth or coolness, maybe nothing much to note. And then we allow our attention to flow from the crown downwards, just like as if it is water. Imagine it flowing to the front, into the face. Now we are allowing the sensations at the face to come fully to mind. Notice any tensions here, whether are we unconsciously tensing up any of the facial muscles. And if we are, is it possible for us gently to release those tensions? The tension at the forehead, the tension from clenching the jaw, tension from tightening the muscles around the eyes. See if we can release them and welcome a feeling of softness, of ease and comfort into our own face. Allow attention to flow downwards into the neck, touching the throat. Again, with a light touch, be mindful of sensations here. Continue into the shoulders so that we are inquiring how the shoulders are feeling today. Neck and shoulders are parts of the body that store quite often a lot of tension, a lot of tightness, and therefore quite a bit of unpleasant sensations. If we notice that in ourselves, if we can simply acknowledge it as we allow it to come fully to mind, to awareness, acknowledge the unpleasantness, the discomfort, and let them be as it is for the moment. We allow our attention to continue down both arms at the same time, starting from the shoulder joints, allowing bodily sensations to come fully to mind, to awareness. And as we move along the arms, moving down, we notice simple sensations here. Simple, subtle sensations at both elbows. Nothing spectacular, nothing special. Continuing to the forearms, notice the sensations here. All the way into the hands, so that we are aware of both hands. Sensations at the palms of the hands, at the back of the hands. Sensations in each of the fingers. Now that we are aware of sensations of both arms, see if we can give permission and simply allow both arms to rest their weight comfortably on the physical support. Returning our attention to the chest, and throughout the meditation on mindfulness, we may find ourselves having to invite our attention to come back here and now to our own body. And that is a totally normal thing to do. And we may have to do it many times, which is perfectly fine. Allowing sensation at the chest to come fully to mind, notice sensations associated with the breathing, the movements of the chest, maybe sensations of the beating of the heart. Take note not only of sensations from the front of the body, but also from the back of the body. Allowing our attention to travel further down to the abdomen, to the belly. We welcome in the different sensations from this part of the body, allowing those sensations to come fully to mind. Sensations from the skin level, from the muscles, and deep within the abdominal cavity, from the various organs here. Allowing attention to gather at the pelvis, the pelvic region. Notice sensations here, where powerful muscles are attached to the bones of the pelvis, along with the various organs in this part of the body. Sense the weight of the pelvis resting on our seat. See if we can give permission and allow that weight to rest comfortably here. Surrender that weight to gravity so that we can release any unnecessary tensions or tightness associated with it. Allowing attention to travel down both legs at the same time, starting from the hip joints, sensing as we go, becoming aware of sensations here in the upper legs, at the knees. Feel free to move at your own pace, not necessarily to follow my pacing. Past the knees, into the lower legs, towards the ankles. Eventually ending at both feet. Notice sensations coming through the soles of the feet, the top of the feet, sensations in the toes. And now that we have traveled through the body, practicing mindfulness of body, from crown to feet, see we're also mindful of feelings involved in so doing, especially any pleasant sensations that come forth, however faint they may be. See if we can invite them into come fully to mind. Pleasant sensations of relaxation, or unwinding, of release. Rest our body in the posture. Rest the mind with the body. Continue to practice mindfulness of bodily sensation, mindfulness of feelings, in particular pleasant feelings arising as a part of this meditation. As we continue for the last few minutes in this way, see if we can also become mindful of our own mind, our own consciousness, and the states of our own mind. And find for ourselves how this appear to us, how this come to mind as we practice and become aware, mindfulness of the mind. So returning our attention to the present moment, coming back to be mindful, to be aware of bodily sensations, feelings in the body, and also the mind, the states of the mind. Again and again, if we do notice that our attention is distracted elsewhere, without getting upset, without being frustrated by what we notice, simply invite our attention to just come back here and now and reconnect with bodily sensations, different sensations in the body, sensations of the breath. And already we are back here in the practice of mindfulness, mindfulness of body, of feelings, and of the mind. And finally, I invite you to expand the scope of your awareness and just check in or allow to come fully into your mind, to awareness, the state of your own mind. Does the mind feel drowsy, sleepy, a bit dull, a bit dark and heavy? Does the mind feel quite agitated, active, quite a bit of thinking, ruminating going on? Or maybe you notice within the own mind relative states of calmness, of stillness, spaciousness, not so much thoughts, not so much agitation. And regardless of what we find here, in terms of the body or the mind or the feelings, we can rejoice in our cultivation of mindfulness. Mindfulness that allow us to let in all these different experiences, allow them to come fully to mind, allow ourselves to notice them, to appreciate them, to be aware of them. Okay, so in the meditation, we explore mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feeling, especially pleasant feelings, and mindfulness of the mind. And the cultivation of mindfulness is a fourth one, which is called mindfulness of the Dharma. Dharma is a Sanskrit word, has multiple meanings. And previously I explained that the word Dharma could mean reality, the basic facts of reality that we becoming mindfully aware of, like change. The fact of change or impermanence is the most obvious example of this, and there are others. Then Dharma can also refer to phenomena, things that we can know, that we can be aware of course, which are countless of phenomena we can be aware of. But in Buddhism, a very specific, two specific sets of phenomena emphasized. One is what we call wholesome phenomena, wholesome qualities. These are inner qualities, and unwholesome qualities. So these two group of phenomena, things that we can be aware, we can know, are specifically highlighted, and for us to be mindful of them. So we can be mindful of wholesome qualities like kindness and compassion that might arise and influence our behavior, our feelings, our thoughts. And of course, there are also unwholesome qualities like jealousy or feeling very anxious, depressed. So those are states of mind that are not so helpful. Maybe they impart suffering, to bring forth suffering to ourselves. So to be aware of them. Um, so those are the fourth category of mindfulness, to be mindful of either specific phenomena, wholesome, unwholesome qualities, or to be aware of some basic facts of life, of reality. So from this bring us to today's topic, the topic of this new module, investigation of reality. Actually, you probably would have guessed, the traditional name is investigation of Dharma. Again, Dharma here has that multiple levels of meaning. So I just call it investigation of reality to translate it in a way that at least it's easier for people to understand if you're not sure what the word Dharma refers to. So having been mindful and allowed the various different things to come fully to mind, into awareness, then naturally we can now investigate them to get to know them better, see more details, how to discern and differentiate, get to know them better in a nutshell. So be mindful of the body. It allows us to investigate the state of the body. Be mindful of feelings. We can investigate the nature of feeling as well as what sort of impact the different feelings have on on ourselves, on our body and mind, on our behavior. It's a very important area of inquiry actually. And to investigate the mind. Investigate the mind, how and when the mind come under the influence of wholesome qualities or unwholesome qualities, and what happened if that is to happen. What comes forth, how will we react, how do we behave when we come under the influence of wholesome qualities versus under the influence of unwholesome qualities. So all these are possible subject matter of investigation. So the word investigate can have different meaning, but in a simple way is to become better acquainted, get to know it better, know the details, get to discern things that may not be obvious on at first glance, first encounter, so that we get to know things in a much better, deeper way, or we are able to reveal what is previously hidden from us. Yeah. So investigation of reality, investigation of Dharma is the second factor of awakening. So what that means is mindfulness, when we cultivate it as a factor or condition, actually contribute to the process of awakening. Which makes sense. The more we are aware, the more we are in touch with the reality, with our experiences, it opens up the opportunity for us to be able to shift our state of so-called sleep, under the influence of the sleep of ignorance or delusion, shift into a different state, a state of awakening. Shift out of a state where our attention is confined by old habits and conditioning in the tunnel vision, to shift out of it, to recognize that this is not the whole of reality. This is probably a more distorted representation of the reality of our life. To shift out this perspective into something much more open, spacious, where we can see things more objectively and we are able to see things less influenced by our past conditionings. So that shift is definitely facilitated by being more mindful, by being more in touch, by being more aware of what is actually happening, unfolding from one moment to the other. And also the second factor, that shift towards awakening is also facilitated when we are able to look closely, look into the details, try to, in so doing, help us to uncover mistakes that we made, misapprehension, misperception, maybe mistakes we made under the influence of some kind of wrong belief, wrong idea. That unbeknown to us, we are influenced by that, and that bias our perceptions and bias the way we see things or react to things. And now that with investigation, we have a chance to make things right, help us to see things clearer, maybe in a more accurate way. So that is the whole point of investigation of reality. What I'm going to present in this module is the different methods that we can go about investigating our reality, the reality of our own experience. And hopefully, it's not something that we have to wait forever. Almost immediately, hopefully, we can see the beneficial effect of such a factor of investigating reality. We have our own little epiphany, little realizations to say, oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize how powerful are our past conditionings, how they somehow lock us in, fixate our views, and prevent us from seeing things clearly. Right? And today I want to introduce the first technique, a very simple technique, which piggyback on the quality of mindfulness. And with the help of mindfulness to help us see things clearer. And this technique invite us to make a differentiation in our own experience, as we apply mindfulness, to differentiate between two categories of experience. One, I call it sensing. Sensing means being aware of what's coming through our physical senses, through sight, through sound, smell, taste, tactile sensations. And when we are aware of that, we can call it sensing. Sensing is important in the sense that our physical sense organs operate in real time, in the present moment. So the more we are in touch with the physical senses, and the more we are in touch with sensing through the physical senses, the more we are in touch with what is happening here and now in the present moment. Right? Doesn't mean that the other category is thinking. Doesn't mean that we are not thinking about, necessarily not thinking of what is happening here and now. But it's just that among thinking and sensing necessarily is to do with what is happening here and now. So it's a wonderful, as a skillful means, it's wonderful that each time we return our attention to sensing, automatically we are returning our attention to the present moment, to be in touch with the reality of this moment. At least what is coming through our senses. And contrasting that with thinking. Now, there are different kinds of thinking, and thinking is not necessarily all right or all wrong, all good or all bad. Thinking is a very important function of our mind. We're not trying to get rid of all thinking, but there are certain category of thinking, certain forms of thinking that are not so helpful. I'm sure we are all aware, like certain evenings, certain nights, we are kept awake, even though the next day may be a very important day for us. We are kept awake by our thoughts, these compulsive thoughts, involuntary thinking that we don't have much control over. The thinking could be worry because we are worrying about something, or could be due to excitement, we're just too excited. But either way, it's just this spinning of thoughts, with tremendous amount of energy, preventing us from sleeping, preventing us from having a good rest during the night. And so these are the kind of thinking that we want to be aware of, and also to learn how we can shift our energy or attention away from this kind of what I would call compulsive thinking, shift it back to sensing. Right? So this gives us a way of working creatively with our thinking habits, and at the same time, we get to investigate, get to see clearer what is preoccupying our mind. What is my mind telling me going on and on? What is that process that is happening that turn out to be so disturbing, that prevent me from resting, from being at ease or being at peace? Right? So this technique of investigating reality help us to make use of mindfulness, the skill of mindfulness, and invite us to make a very simple, a bit artificial differentiation between sensing, knowing through our senses, and the activity of thinking. Right? And the way we do that is to make it clearer to us. Usually I just ask people, when we notice that our attention is drawn to a thought, our attention is following a train of thoughts, in our mind, we label that thinking. And we're not trying to stop anything. We're just trying to make it clear to ourselves that I have noticed what is happening here, what is happening with my attention. It is involved with thinking. Right? So we just label the word thinking. And it would be good if possible, but maybe a bit difficult at first, to notice what am I thinking about. Right? So not just that the process of thinking is happening, my attention is involved with thinking, but get a sense that what is it about? What am I thinking about? Right? Having done that, having noticed that, then as a default, then we invite our attention, to put aside the thought, put aside the train of thought, and come back and be aware of what is happening here and now through our physical senses. Come back to sensing. So this is an artificial exercise, but as we do it more and more, it sharpens our skill of mindfulness. And also, in the meantime, we get to investigate and get to know better our different habits, in particular, our different habits of thinking. What are we preoccupied with? Of course, we have to combine with the context we find ourselves in, what is happening in our life at the moment. Why am I reacting in thinking in this way? But we can make those connections subsequently, yeah. But in the meditation itself, applying this technique of investigating reality, we start off by differentiating between sensing and thinking. You'll find that this, although it sounds very trivial, very simple, makes a lot of difference, because one moment we are all caught up in this thinking, this ruminating thoughts. Could be about something that happened in the past. We are reliving and revisiting a certain scenario in the past and getting all worked up and upset by it. Or we are projecting in the future and then we forgot. We sort of, we're not aware that we are simply imagining it, and we get all caught up in. It's almost like get caught up in a kind of a soap drama that is created. The script is written by us, and so we actually react to it. It stirs up all these feelings and all these agitated thoughts. And the moment we notice with mindfulness and we label, thinking. So we get to see, catch a glimpse of this activity, this process that is preoccupying our attention. And then as part of the technical, to invite the attention, the energy of attention, channel it back into sensing. Thinking, then sensing. Then after a while, you find yourself back into thinking, no problem. Label thinking, invite to come back to sensing. It's good to not to see that one is good and the other is bad. It's nothing to do with good and bad. It's just different processes happening. We are simply getting to know ourselves, get to know our own habits, get to find out for ourselves. If we do get distracted from sensing, what is my mind preoccupied with? What am I conditioning as far as thinking is concerned? Right? And this is one way we investigate reality, investigate our experiences. More particularly, as we get to know it better, we can investigate and get to know which form of thinking is helpful and which form of thinking is unhelpful. The helpful thinking, the functional thinking, help us solve problems, deal with issues, get on with life, achieve our goals. The unhelpful one get us trapped in a kind of vortex, going round and round and round. Could be trapped in the past, trapped in some kind of imaginary scenarios, and we find ourselves trapped in a certain cycle of reactions, emotional, and so on and so forth, but not having any end in sight. We just saw endlessly trapped, going round and round and round. So that is something we can discover for ourselves as we get good at this particular technique. Right, so I invite you to join me now. We do a short meditation just to try out this way of investigating our reality with the help of mindfulness. So let's start once again by establishing our body in a suitable meditation posture, one that allows the body to feel well supported. Be it sitting or lying down, make sure that the spine, the back feels comfortable in our posture, that the posture has not introduced unnecessary pain and discomfort into any part of the body. We take a few moments at the beginning of meditation just to allow the body to have time to adjust, to find its way into the posture, to become settled and comfortable in the posture of meditation. To help body and mind make that transition once again, to transition into meditation, might be helpful to start with attending to the breath sensations. So see if you can notice the sensation associated with the in-breath and the out-breath. You might even want to start with a few deep breaths, if that's helpful, breathing in and out deeply for just a few times. And allow the breath to settle back to its natural rhythm. See if we can allow the body to breathe itself. Don't feel that we need to control the breath in any particular way. And all we need to do is to become mindfully aware of the bodily sensations that is associated with the breath, associated with breathing. We can allow ourselves to be aware of sensations of the in-breath, and especially be aware of the sensations of the out-breath. Feeling ourselves breathing out, see if we can tune into a subtle sense of release, the release that comes along with the out-breath. After all, breathing out is a process of releasing. The muscles of our diaphragm, muscles of the chest relax in order for the air to flow out. So for the first few minutes, returning our attention to the breath sensations, breathing out, we practice releasing, make use of this opportunity to invite the body to release some of its tension and tightness and contractions that are not needed and not helpful. Coming back to the breath, breathing out, we can also set aside thoughts, images, ideas that pop into the mind that are not related to the meditation. We can also let them go with the breath. And whenever we feel ready, we can transition to the practice of investigating the reality, our meditative experience with the help of mindfulness. Attending to the breath or allowing breath sensations to come into awareness. Breath sensations are sensed or noted through our body sense. So noticing the breath sensations is a form of sensing, such as noticing sounds in the surrounding, noticing tension or relaxation in the different parts of the body, noticing the movements, sensations of movement associated with breathing. All of these belong to the category of sensing. Sensing what is happening here and now through our physical senses. We make sensing the support for the meditation. we invite our attention to come back here and now, to be involved with sensing again and again, gently, without feeling frustrated. Simply come back to here and now, to the present moment, and allow ourselves to sense, to notice what is happening. What is happening through our ears in the form of sounds, through our body in the form of various tactile sensations, breath sensations. Of course, if you have your eyes open, you can also sense through the eyes the visual images, visual objects to come into view. Resting here and now, we'll find that sooner or later our attention is drawn elsewhere, drawn to thoughts. It could be thoughts of the past in the form of words or images. It could be thoughts about the future in the form of planning, worrying, judging. It could be thoughts of fantasy through the power of imagination. And we will notice that we become preoccupied with thinking. We get drawn in and we board the train of thoughts that take us far away from here and now. Once we become aware of it, see if we can, in your mind, label that as thinking. Help us to see it for what it is. Help us to notice what we are thinking about, what we are so caught up with. And then we invite our attention to come back here and now and come back to sensing. Coming back here and now, see if we can, in our own experience, differentiate between sensing through our senses, using that as a support for our attention in meditation. Come back to that again and again. And on occasions, we suddenly realize that we are involved with thinking, which is perfectly fine. In our mind, gently apply the label, thinking. Help us see clearly, help us notice what we are thinking about, and then we come back to sensing. Coming back to the present moment, we can be aware of sound in the surrounding, sound from our own body, and aware of sensing bodily sensations, including breath sensations, sensations of tension or tightness, sensations of relaxation, sensations of softness. And now and then we will realize that our attention is drawn elsewhere, no longer with here and now. Instead, attention is drawn into thinking. Thinking in the form of words, thinking in the form of visual images and so forth, about past, about future, about some imaginary scenarios. Gently label that activity as thinking. Help us see clearly for what it is. Notice what we are thinking about, what we are preoccupied about, and then invite attention to come back here and now to sensing. Coming back to the present moment, it's good to view this meditation not in a too serious a manner. Try to bring a bit of lightness and playfulness into it, not judging one as good and the other as bad, but instead see it as a challenge to be mindfully aware of what our attention is preoccupied with. Is our attention with sensing, with the physical senses here and now? Or is our attention again and again drawn into different forms of thinking, different trains of thoughts, different kind of storylines? Is it possible for us to be aware, to notice it as early as possible, and to label it gently as thinking, and then come back to the present moment? So once again, coming back here and now, see if we can, as we continue the last few minutes of the meditation, see if we can find within our own experience any differences between the two activity, between sensing and thinking, and how sensing and thinking may impact on the body, on our feelings, on our state of mind. Sometimes when I investigate through meditation, the two activity of sensing and thinking, I will find that when the mind is able to come back, to be at ease with sensing, to be in touch with what is happening here, it often helps to relieve a lot of tension and tightness, because sensing what is happening here, hearing the sounds and surrounding, noticing the breath, the weight of the body, the touch of the body against the chair, the fabric of the clothes. Things are happening in this moment that is indicate that there is no immediate danger, there is nothing stressful happening in this moment. By sensing into the reality of this moment, it helps the mind and the body to make adjustments, especially the body at first. The body say, oh, well, no, maybe I don't really need to be so tight and tense. And occasionally they release some of those unnecessary tension. Thinking, on the other hand, is interesting. There are certain kind of thinking that is helpful, functional, thinking that says, oh no, maybe remind myself to adjust the posture, to check into the posture, whether this posture is helpful or not. So those are functional thinking that we rely on a lot in our day-to-day life to help us solve problems, to help us deal with situations. And then there are other kinds of thinking, other forms of thinking. You can call them reactive thinking. They are quite often preoccupied with maybe something that happened in the past, something unresolved that weighs on our mind and heart. And in the meditation, the same topic, the same issue resurface, and we find ourselves reacting to it in the form of thoughts. Yeah. Thoughts could be in words, could be images, thoughts that are quite likely to stir us up strong feelings and emotions. But nonetheless, these are thinking. They are preoccupied with something that has already happened in the past. Or it could be preoccupied with something that may happen in the future. Or it could be preoccupied with something that will never happen in real life. It's a fantasy. But attention is very much caught up in the fantasy, the thinking, the imagination, or the visual images, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And this kind of reactive thinking, depending on what we are thinking about, also has an impact on the body, especially if we are thinking of something that is stressful. We revisit arguments, we become anxious about certain things, certain concerns that weigh on us. This is actually very common because we live in a modern society, which a lot of it depends on generating the anxiety. Too much contentment is not good for the economy. So there is almost this constant need to create new needs. If you are already contented with what you have, we want to make you discontent. We want to point out that there are more things you need to do. It's not good enough. There are more preparation you need to do for the future. And there's always something more. And so if we find that some of our thinking tap into or kind of get involved in such scenarios, and as we think in words and images, the body, the feelings also react to it. So this is what I call reactive thinking. Not that it's necessarily wrong, but one thing is it is not in touch with present moment reality. I could be preoccupied with something that happened in the past, but am I aware I'm thinking that this is the past? Maybe not. I might be preoccupied with something may happen in the future and got really caught up in the scenario. Am I aware that this is not happening here and now? Most probably not. So I'm taking what is created by my thoughts, and somehow I have assumed that that is reality, and I'm reacting to it, even physically, physiologically, to it as if it is real. And that is where thinking has, in a way, sidetracked us. And if that happens a lot, then we are living more in our head as opposed to living in our actual life, in the actual present moment reality. So this is what we can investigate for ourselves through this simple technique, differentiating between sensing and thinking, and in particular, different kinds of thinking and what sort of effect they have, what sort of impact they may have on ourselves. And over time, as we become more and more skillful in this simple technique, which rely on mindfulness, we also get to see for ourselves, investigate for ourselves, which kind of thinking habits do I have personally? What my mind tend to be preoccupied with? Also, we see the effect of that kind of thinking habits. Are they beneficial? Do they really help me to deal with what's going on in my life? Or are they creating more anxiety, causing more anguish, causing increasing level of stress to myself? We can investigate for ourselves. And from that, we can draw our own conclusion and come up with our own strategy of dealing with it. Quite often, you'll find that a lot of our reactive thinking are not so helpful. Some of them are, yes, helpful, planning, reminiscence, no problem. Occasionally we worried about something, that's fine. But certain habituated way of reacting, certain conditioning that gripped our body and mind, refuse to let go and find ourselves engaged in it, often more and more. This can have a damaging effect, not just to the mind, to our state of mind, to our mood, but also physically to our body, because we are putting ourselves constantly in a state of stress, not allowing the whole system to have a rest, to release all those worry and concern and anxiety, come back to a normal baseline. So, and this is what we can accomplish with investigation of reality. We can find out for ourselves what is helpful, what is not helpful, what is in accordance with truth, with reality, as we can determine it, and what is clearly not true, not related to reality, fake news. As these days we like to say. We also create, we have a department in our own head and mind. They are very good at creating fake news. And that fake news, when we believe in it, distort our reality, distort our perceptions. And then, of course, there are repercussions from that kind of misunderstanding, misperception. Okay, so I hope that is clear. This very first session on the new module, investigation of reality, relying on and continuing on from the previous module of mindfulness. And here we actually make use of the quality of mindfulness that we have developed and we have enhanced and applied, using it to help us to investigate our reality, our present moment, and to help us differentiate between when we are actually sensing what is happening here and now, and when we are caught up in thoughts, especially thoughts that are not so helpful and not in accord with reality. Okay, so that's all I have for this week, for this session. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you have a good week ahead, and maybe during the week you can apply this simple technique. Not necessarily in a meditation, maybe just suddenly out of nowhere, you might find yourself noticing whether you are sensing, you are present in this moment, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you are present, in touch with what is going on in that moment. Or, like me, you might more likely to be caught up in thoughts, could be some fantasy land, or you might find yourself caught up in the past or caught up in the future. And you can investigate and find out for yourself how beneficial that is. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and hope to see you next week. Good night.